They say perception is reality. For years, my family, especially my sister, operated under a reality built entirely on perception. Their perception of me, anyway. They saw the surface, the quiet girl, the one who didn't chase the glittering corporate world they idolized. They saw someone small. What they missed was the foundation, the bedrock I was building in the dark, brick by painstaking brick. My grandfather, a man who knew the quiet strength of a well-made piece of furniture or a perfectly balanced ledger, used to tell me, "Scarlett, people will judge you by the paint on the wall, not the structure of the house. Let them look. Build your house strong anyway." I never understood how deeply those words would resonate until I was living them. I grew up in a comfortable but not lavish home. My parents, Sarah and Robert, ran a successful, independent accounting firm for small businesses. It was solid, respectable work, but it wasn't Apex Global or Wall Street. From them, I learned diligence, discretion, and the absolute necessity of balancing the books, down to the last cent. I wasn't drawn to the client-facing sales side of things. I liked the logic, the systems, the quiet hum of data flowing into order. I told people I was a freelance tech consultant. Later, I refined that to running a small software studio from home. It was vague enough to satisfy casual questions, and dull enough that most people lost interest quickly. This suited me just fine. What they didn't know is that my small studio was Novalogic Systems, and the consulting involved building and implementing cutting-edge data analytics platforms for Fortune 500 companies. I intentionally kept a low profile, preferring to let the results speak for themselves. My clients valued discretion, and so did I. My older sister, Victoria, was everything I wasn't, or rather, everything I actively chose not to be. She was loud, ambitious in the most visible way, and utterly captivated by status. From the moment she landed her first corporate internship, she began shedding anything she perceived as not fitting her upward trajectory. Our parents' quiet accounting firm became sweet and quaint. My life became, well, it became something to be managed or, failing that, pitted. Victoria climbed the ladder fast at Apex Global, a sprawling holding company. She was sharp, ruthless, and charming when she needed to be. She became VP of Strategic Partnerships, a title she wielded like a weapon. The job started subtly. At family dinners, Victoria would sigh dramatically. "Oh, Scarlett, still doing your little computer thing? Don't you get lonely working alone all day? Or, have you thought about getting a real job, sweetie? I could put in a word for you somewhere, maybe entry level, but it's a start." My parents, Sarah trying to mediate, Victoria just worries, Robert silent and looking at his plate, never pushed back. They seemed relieved when Victoria was the center of attention, her conventional success something they understood and could be proud of in the way society expected. My success was invisible, and therefore, in their eyes, suspect or simply non-existent. Then there was Ethan. I met him through a mutual friend. He was a history teacher, kind, gentle, seemingly appreciative of my quiet nature. He wasn't impressed by Victoria's world, or so I thought. When we started dating, he was supportive, or what I thought was supportive. He'd listen to me vent about Victoria, he'd hold my hand under the table at family gatherings. But he never, not once, publicly challenged Victoria or defended me. If she made a cutting remark, he'd wince, maybe give her a look, but he'd stay silent. Later, he'd tell me, "Don't let her get to you. You're amazing." But the words felt hollow when he wouldn't speak them when it mattered. The silence in the face of her barbs began to feel like a quiet agreement. We got engaged 6 months ago. I loved him, or the idea of him, enough to hope things would change. They didn't. Victoria's put-downs became bolder, especially as her own star at Apex Global rose. At a Christmas party last year, she introduced me to a group of her colleagues, including Chloe, a woman who seemed to have perfected Victoria's air of condescension. "This is my sister, Scarlett," Victoria announced, a pitying smile plastered on her face. "She's self-employed. Works from home. Very independently." Chloe chuckled, swirling her wine. "Oh, how quaint," she drawled, her eyes raking over my simple dress. "Must be a relaxed life." Victoria added, "We keep telling her she should come work for Apex, get some real experience, but she seems happy, doing her own thing." I just smiled, a tight, polite smile. while inside, a knot of frustration hardened into something cold and strong. They had no idea. Absolutely no idea. Months passed in this predictable pattern. Family events felt like performances where Victoria showcased her glittering life and subtly highlighted mine as a cautionary tale of wasted potential. Ethan's silence grated on me more each time. My parents seemed resigned, or perhaps they truly believed Victoria's narrative, hoping her constant prodding would somehow push me into a normal career. I threw myself into my work, into building Novalogic systems, pouring all that frustrated energy into code, into acquisitions, into strategic planning. The quiet satisfaction of my growing success was my shield, but the constant underestimation was a persistent ache. Then came the announcement that would change everything. Victoria was hosting a massive gala to celebrate her promotion to head of a major new division at Apex Global. It was the talk of the family. Apex Global is footing the bill for this, Scarlett, she boasted on a family call, her voice dripping with importance. It's going to be the event of this season. All the key players will be there. A real networking opportunity. A week later, she called me directly. Scarlett, she began, her tone saccharine sweet, about the gala. I know you're not really into these kinds of events, and honestly, the guest list is rather exclusive. Mostly Apex Global people you wouldn't know. But I could really use your help. Here it came. You're so good at organizing things with your little projects, and you do have a lot of free time. We need someone reliable to be on site early, oversee the coat check, help guests find their tables, coordinate with the event staff. Make sure everything runs smoothly behind the scenes. You're good with details, right? It would be a huge help. My first instinct was a hot flash of pure fury. Manage the coat check? Oversee staff? Like I was some kind of glorified usher? The insult was blatant, undisguised beneath the thin veneer of asking a favor. Sarah, who was also on the call, chimed in immediately. Oh, Scarlett, that's perfect. You're so responsible. You'd be wonderful at that. Robert sighed audibly in the background. Ethan, next to me, squeezed my hand, his expression troubled. You don't have to, he whispered later when we were alone. It's ridiculous. But the heat of my anger cooled, replaced by a sudden, exhilarating chill. A few days earlier, I'd received the most confidential, high-level email of my career. Novalogic Systems had been in discreet, accelerated talks to acquire a controlling interest in a major holding company. That holding company? Apex Global. The deal was massive, complex, and required absolute secrecy until the papers were signed. It was happening fast. My CFO, Lucas, had indicated finalization was imminent, possibly within days. And Alexander, the notoriously private CEO of Apex Global, had expressed a keen interest in finally meeting the elusive founder of Novalogic once the deal was done. He was known to attend major Apex Global events. The pieces clicked into place with the satisfying precision of a perfectly executed algorithm. Victoria's exclusive gala, packed with Apex Global executives and key players, hosted by the very sister she constantly belittled, on the very night the acquisition of her company might be finalized, with the very CEO who wanted to meet me in attendance. It wasn't an insult. It was an invitation. A stage. My stage. No, I told Ethan, my voice calm, perhaps a little too calm. I'd be happy to help Victoria. Everything should be perfect for her big night. Ethan looked confused, then relieved that the potential conflict was apparently averted. He didn't understand. He couldn't. My decision wasn't about helping. It was about positioning. The day of the gala arrived, cool and clear, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. The event was held at a sprawling, opulent estate Victoria had likely rented to impress everyone. As I drove up, past the security guards checking invitations, I felt a sense of surreal calm. I was dressed in a simple, elegant black dress, professional enough to blend in with event staff, but far from the glittering gowns of the guests. Victoria swept towards me as soon as I was through the gates, already looking stressed and imperious in a shimmering gold dress. Scarlett! Finally! Go straight to the entrance hall. Maria, the catering manager, is expecting you. The coat check is there. Make sure you stay focused and try not to be noticed. She air-kissed my cheek without making contact and then whirled away to greet more important early arrivals. Her casual dismissal didn't sting. It felt like fuel. In the entrance hall, Maria, a harried-looking woman in charge of the logistical nightmare Victoria had seemingly created with last-minute changes, looked overwhelmed. "You're Scarlett? Victoria's sister? Oh, thank goodness. She said you were coming to help. We're swamped. The coat check system isn't working, we're short-staffed for guiding guests, and Mrs. Victoria keeps changing where people are supposed to sit." I smiled reassuringly. "It's okay, Maria. Let's tackle this. What's the issue with the coat check software? Sometimes it's a simple fix." I spent the next hour not just overseeing, but actively troubleshooting, coordinating, and problem-solving. My years of building complex systems, managing unexpected bugs, and dealing with demanding clients had prepared me perfectly for event management chaos. Maria watched me with widening eyes. "You're really good at this," she said, genuine surprise in her voice. "Victoria said you helped with little things." I just shrugged. "Logistics are logistics," I said, efficiently rerouting arriving guests as I spoke. It felt deeply, profoundly satisfying to be genuinely competent in the exact role Victoria had assigned me as a form of soft punishment. As the main wave of guests arrived, the hall filled with the hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, and the scent of expensive perfume. I was in my element, a quiet observer behind the scenes, noting the key Apex global executives Victoria had mentioned, the investors, the media personalities. Ethan arrived, found me near the coat check, and gave me a strained smile. "You okay?" he murmured. "You don't have to stay here all night." "I'm fine," I replied, checking a name off a list. "Someone has to make sure everything runs smoothly." He looked uncomfortable and drifted off towards the main party area. Later, as the party was in full swing, I saw Victoria glittering in the center of a large group, including Chloe and several other Apex executives. She was laughing loudly, clearly enjoying the spotlight. I was near the edge of the room, directing a server, when I heard my name. "Did you see Scarlett?" Victoria giggled, loud enough that I knew she intended for me to hear. "My sister. She's helping with the service tonight. Bless her heart, it's really the only thing she's comfortable with, dealing with practical matters." Chloe added, "It's sweet she helps out. Shows humility, I suppose. Not everyone is cut out for this." She gestured around the lavish room. Sarah, who had joined the group, added with a sympathetic sigh, "We've always tried to include her, of course, but with her background, well, she finds her niche where she can." A wave of cold calm washed over me. That was it. Years of being talked about like a charity case, a project, someone less than. Years of their assumptions defining their reality. I met Maria's eyes. She'd heard too and looked sympathetic but helpless. I gave her a small, almost imperceptible nod. My phone, tucked discreetly in my pocket, buzzed. "Lucas, my CFO." A simple, prearranged message. Green light. Effective immediately. It was time. Just then, a ripple went through the crowd. Alexander, the CEO of Apex Global, had arrived. Victoria's face lit up, and she broke away from her group, rushing towards him, radiating practiced charm. "Mr. Alexander, welcome. We are so honored to have you." Alexander, a man who exuded quiet power, scanned the room as Victoria gushed. His gaze swept past the glittering guests, past the elaborate decorations, and landed on me. I was standing near the coat check, holding a misplaced scarf, a quiet figure in a black dress. He stopped. His brow furrowed slightly. A look of confusion, then intense recognition flashed across his face. Victoria, noticing his focus, laughed nervously, trying to pull his arm. "Oh, please, Mr. Alexander, pay her no mind. That's just my sister Scarlett. She's helping with the staff tonight. Not really a guest. Let me introduce you properly." But Alexander wasn't listening. He walked directly towards me, cutting through the space Victoria was trying to protect. The chatter in the immediate vicinity died down. "Wait a moment," Alexander said, his voice carrying clearly. Is that Scarlett's full name?" "Scarlett, from Novalogic Systems." Victoria froze, her smile dissolving. Chloe and the group Victoria had been with stared, bewildered. Ethan, who had been chatting nearby, turned sharply, his eyes wide. My parents, across the room, looked confused. I placed the scarf on a nearby table and stepped forward, meeting Alexander's gaze. "Hello, Alexander," I said, my voice steady and clear, projecting just enough to be heard. "Thank you for coming tonight." Alexander's face broke into a genuine smile, looking utterly amused and surprised. "Scarlett, what on earth are you doing, working the event?" He glanced at Victoria, then back at me, a knowing look in his eyes. I confess, when my team told me the founder of Novalogic was surprisingly low profile, I didn't imagine quite this low a profile. Victoria stammered, her voice brittle with panic. "Novalogic? What are you talking about?" "Scarlett's a freelance. She helps people with their computers." "Mr. Alexander, there must be a mistake." Alexander turned to the stunned crowd, raising his voice slightly. "Mistake? Not at all. Ladies and gentlemen, it seems this gala is even more significant than you imagined. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce someone very important. As of approximately 10 minutes ago, Novalogic Systems has successfully acquired a controlling interest, 55%, to be exact, in Apex Global." He turned back to me, a gesture of respect in his posture. "And this," he announced, indicating me, "is Miss Scarlett, Scarlett's last name, the brilliant founder and CEO of Novalogic Systems. She is now the majority owner and effective leader of Apex Global." Silence descended upon the entire estate, thick and absolute. You could have heard a single champagne bubble pop. Victoria's glass slipped from her nerveless fingers and shattered on the marble floor. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Chloe looked like she might faint. Sarah gasped, clutching Robert's arm. Robert's face was ashen. Ethan just stared, his jaw slack. Victoria finally choked out, You're lying. You're a baker. You do little apps. You work from home." Alexander chuckled softly. "With all due respect, Victoria, Ms. Scarlett's last name as company, Novalogic Systems, is a leader in strategic data analytics. Her technology is why Novalogic has acquired Apex Global. Your promotion, Victoria, and indeed the future of your division, now falls under her purview." He looked at me, admiration clear in his eyes. "Those system optimization protocols you outlined in our preliminary talks? Absolutely revolutionary." I turned to face my sister, my voice quiet but cutting through the silence like glass. "All those years, Victoria," I said, my gaze unwavering. "All those times you dismissed me, talked about me like I was a project or a charity case, someone struggling and insignificant. You couldn't see past the surface, could you? You were so convinced your world was the only one that mattered, that success only looked one way." Sarah found her voice, weak and trembling. "Scarlett, honey, we didn't know." "You didn't know I had money?" I finished for her, a sad hard edge to my voice. "That's the point, Mother. You didn't need to know my net worth to treat me with respect. You just assumed I wasn't worth it because my path wasn't the one Victoria chose. You let appearances blind you." Ethan pushed through the stunned guests, his face a mix of confusion and desperation. "Scarlett, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell any of us?" I looked at him, the man I had planned to marry, the man who had held my hand but never stood by me. "Tell you what, Ethan?" I asked softly. "Tell you I was wealthy? Would that have made you speak up all those times? Would you have defended me then? Because you never did when you thought I wasn't." He faltered, speechless. "Love without respect," I continued, my voice barely a whisper but clear in the quiet room, "isn't love that lasts. Every time you let my family treat me like I was less than human, you showed me the real value you placed on me. It wasn't enough." I slipped the engagement ring off my finger. It felt cold and heavy. I placed it on the edge of a nearby marble table. "I ended our engagement last week, Ethan. You'll be hearing from my attorney." His face crumpled. I turned back to Victoria, who was trembling, eyes wide with shock and fury. "You humiliated me," she hissed, finding her voice. "In front of everyone." "No, Victoria," I corrected her calmly. "You humiliated yourself for years. I simply stopped letting you. As for your position at Apex Global, you'll now be reporting to the new leadership. Starting Monday, you will be reassigned to head up Novalogic's new community entrepreneur initiative. We'll be providing analytical tools and business support to small local businesses. It's an area Apex Global has ignored, but one Novalogic values greatly. I paused. You'll find the work grounding and challenging in ways your current role isn't. Chloe looked horrified. Victoria stared at me, dumbfounded. Report? To who? To someone who understands the struggles of small businesses, I replied evenly. The initiative will be run in partnership with a local firm that excels in supporting community ventures. My parents' accounting firm, actually. My mother, Sarah, will be overseeing the partnership on their end. You'll be reporting directly to the project lead she designates. Sarah gasped again. Robert looked stunned. Then a flicker of something akin to pride touched his face. Victoria looked like she might physically collapse. Sarah rushed to her side. Scarlett, please. We can talk about this. We're family. I shook my head, a sense of profound weariness washing over me. Family? I echoed. For years, you made me feel like an outsider, someone to be pitied or managed. You valued status over kindness. You let Victoria treat me with contempt because you thought I wasn't successful by your definition. Where was the family then? Robert stepped forward, finally finding his voice, low but firm. She's right, Sarah. We were wrong. Terribly wrong. He looked at me, regret etched on his face. We watched our values decay into pride and prejudice. Maybe this was necessary. I took a deep breath. One more thing, I said, addressing the room, but looking directly at Victoria and Sarah. This estate. It's lovely, isn't it? All this grandeur. I had acquired the property days ago, a strategic move not tied to the Apex Global deal, but planned to coincide. As of this morning, this property has been acquired by the Novalogic Foundation. It will be repurposed. Not for galas like this, but as a center for our entrepreneurial support programs and job training initiatives. A place where people building things from the ground up, quietly and diligently, can find the resources they need. A place for real growth, not just appearances. Their stunned faces were almost a work of art, but the satisfaction wasn't in their shock. It was in the quiet knowledge that I had stayed true to myself, built my empire on substance, and chosen the timing and the stage for my own truth. I didn't linger for the inevitable questions or recriminations. I walked out of the opulent hall, past the silent guests, past Ethan frozen by the marble table with the ring. Outside, the night air felt cool and clean. My phone buzzed. A text from Robert. Coming to the old office. Made some coffee. Want to talk? I smiled. Be there in 20 minutes later. I was sitting in the small, familiar office where Novalogic systems had begun, the scent of paper and old coffee grounds comforting. Robert was there, quiet and reflective. Sarah arrived later, her usual proud demeanor replaced by a humbled silence. We talked, really talked, for the first time in years. Robert spoke of regret, of seeing clearly now. Sarah spoke hesitantly, acknowledging their mistakes. It was the beginning of something new, maybe something real. People like that, Robert said eventually, shaking his head slightly, referring to the gala and the world we had left behind. They build castles on sand. Looks grand, but there's no foundation. Success, I thought, is like an iceberg. Most people only see the tip, the visible achievement, the title, the wealth. They don't see the years of struggle, the late nights, the calculated risks, the quiet resilience beneath the surface. My true wealth wasn't measured in billions, but in integrity, self-respect, and the courage to define my own worth, regardless of who was watching or judging. If my story resonates with you, if you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or told you weren't enough because you didn't fit someone else's mold, know this. Keep building. Keep working in the quiet. Define your own success. Your worth is inherent, not granted by others' perception. And sometimes, when the time is right, revealing the strength of the house you've built is the most powerful statement of all.